So I'm going to start with just an intro for NFTs. When we started this process of discussion, honestly, neither Christina nor I we don't consider ourselves, and we still don't consider ourselves experts in NFTs, but there was a lot of interest and a lot of jargon and information that we wanted to dig into and find out because it's a very controversial issue. There's a lot of excitement and a lot of doubt and criticism, and we wanted to understand it better. So we wanted to host a symposium and hopefully get some of that information out there. So let's begin. Let's go to the next slide. So let's just start out with, what are we talking about here? NFTs are the short for non-fungible token, which is a type of cryptocurrency that is tagged to something unique. So just to break down the words, non-fungible means that it is not able to be broken up into parts and retain any value. So if you had a $100 bill, or you could exchange that evenly for 100 $1 bills and give everybody, give 100 people $1. That is not something you can do with an NFT. So you could think of an NFT maybe be like a statue, where you could have a statue, but if you broke it up into a bunch of pieces, it wouldn't have any value, it wouldn't be the thing anymore. So an NFT is representative of a unique, non-replicatable thing on the blockchain. And we're going to get into what all that means. So, you might have heard of Bored Apes or CryptoKitties, but blockchains can be any kind of digital asset or pointer to anything, even in the real world, that are tied to a unique identifier on the blockchain. Even a little bit of music. Let's see. I don't know if this is going to play. Oh, Melissa has to click it. But like there, you can. So you've heard of people selling JPEGs and GIFs and videos. You can even actually sell music or rights to music or ownership of music. It's really a little bit confusing. And that's what we're going to dig into. So just to summarize, that's kind of the basic definition of NFT is a thing on the blockchain that is tied to a unique asset that can be traded and sold. And that's kind of where this all kind of kicks off. Go to the next slide. So the NFT marketplace, you might be against NFTs, you might be pro NFT, but the fact is it is a huge market. It's exploding. There's a lot of money changing hands. There's a lot more people involved. A year ago, at this time, roughly, there was maybe 25,000 people trading NFTs, and now there's 10 times as many people, maybe more. It seems to be accelerating. The data is a little hard to pin down, but we can know that even on just one major platform, 250,000 different wallets, let's say, people holding wallets are trading NFTs. The market is exploding. It did $41 billion of transactions in 2021. And the amount of growth in the marketplace is 131 times what it was last year. So it's a massive event. Whether this matures into a stable growth pattern or is a peak or a bubble, hard to say. But right now, NFTs are everywhere. If you get on Twitter or social media, or just do a search, you're going to find a lot of websites and support and conversation about NFTs. So whether you are, regardless of whether you're pro or against NFTs, the amount of money and interest in them is growing substantially, and it's worth getting familiar with it. You may have heard of the artist Beeple, which is kind of like the flag bearer of the NFT movement in a way, because he's a digital artist, has been around for a long time, posting his art on social media, and pretty popular, very spicy art as the people on Twitter refer to it. He was recruited and asked to create a collection of his artwork digitally and mint it as an NFT. Again, we're going to get into what all those words mean. But it was fantastically successful. He was able to sell his collection of 5,000 digital artworks via an NFT, or sell the NFT to his digital artworks for $69 million over a couple of different sales. obviously life-changing event for him, and it got a huge amount of interest from the internet and the investment community. But I think the thing to know about all that, there are some amazing, it's not even the highest NFT sale ever. There's some other ones that are, there's one called Quantum, which sold for 90 million. So first of all, somebody has 90 million or $69 million to spend on these. That's interesting. But it's important to know that this is not typical. This is not, NFTs are not inherently worth anything. They're only worth what the market will pay. Most NFTs don't increase in value, may even lose money based on the transaction costs, but there's still a tremendous amount of interest. And, the thing is, it's worth paying attention to. So yes, people are spending millions on NFTs, but very, very rarely. And although it makes headlines, it is not something that most creators could expect to make. So let's get into a little bit of the glossary of terms. There's a lot of jargon. I'm not even going to cover a portion of it, just the ones that the words I think are going to be most commonly used today that you may not have heard, or maybe you've heard but never had really defined for you. Just as a program note, if in the course of the day, any of us or one of the panelists use words or phrases that just don't mean anything to you, please put a question in, throw up a question. I'll try to pay attention to that and have them define things as we go forward. But don't feel uncomfortable that you don't know some of this jargon, because it's all very new and very nuanced and complex. So we're right here with you. I'm going to probably learn some new phrases today myself. So let's just pick a few of these words and understand them a bit better. Blockchain, the word of the day. Blockchain is a shared file on the internet. That's, it is a physical thing on your disk drive or on a server. I can download a blockchain from the internet and look at it and inspect it. And there's lots of tools to do that. And the thing about a blockchain is it's a shared file. So my blockchain is only valid if all the other blockchain files out there are in sync and have the same basic data, so that it becomes a public ledger that everybody can look at and inspect and see everything that's happened. And that's important for the NFT discussion, because when we transact something, whether it could be a Bitcoin or an Ethereum token or an NFT or anything else, the point is that a person can do something on the blockchain and have it be publicly available for everyone to look at, verify, and trust that this thing happened. And it is the underpinning technology which makes everything else we're going to talk about possible. So a blockchain is a large file shared on the internet, which contains all of the data of all the transactions made on the blockchain previously, which are unchangeable. You can't go back and change them. So how do I interact with the blockchain? And there's a concept called a wallet. We all know what wallets are, but it is a file on your computer that contains tokens. Now, that could be, you could have a wallet for Bitcoin, you could have an Ethereum wallet, you could have different kinds of wallets, but those are basically files that have your tokens, your strings of characters, which represent your ownership and your ability to, the keys, the cryptographic keys to transact on the blockchain. So you can verify that you own a token with that wallet, and then you can tell the blockchain that you want to do something with that token. And there's software, lots and lots of software and websites and service providers that provide this service. It is very technical how wallets interact with the blockchain, which is beyond what I could hope to cover in the time that we have, but it is a key component. So when you hear about people's wallets, you think about a physical wallet, but it's really a file, a personal, very secure file that you want to keep safe, just like your regular wallet, and keep secure with a secure password. Because if your wallet is exposed or you release your keys, one of the downsides of crypto is people can take your stuff, and it's really hard to catch them. So a wallet is where you store your crypto tokens, such as NFTs, Bitcoins, or any other blockchain asset. And how would we do this? We know there's a blockchain. We know there's NFTs. We have a wallet, or maybe we get a wallet, or we want to sign up and get a wallet. What if we wanted to find out what I could do with it with regard to NFTs? How would I get there? You would go to an NFT market. There are a lot of them, and I expect there will be at least dozens more markets created for various niche applications over in the coming year or two. But one you might have heard of that's probably the largest is called OpenSea. There are many other large ones, but that is the one that I think gets the most attention in the media. And it's a website. It's a market where they've provided some back-end services to allow you to look at, mint, and transact NFTs or other crypto assets. There is a lot of technology behind the scenes to make that happen. But from a user's point of view, you create an account, you give them some money. It could be crypto money, it could be cash that they convert to crypto. And then you look for things you want to buy or bid on or interact or sell, and upload or mint and create original content. And they help you do that. So they're the storefronts. And usually, and I think probably in almost all cases, they're going to use smart contracts, which we'll talk about, to take a little percentage of whatever you do. So they're happy to take your stuff, because whether or not it sells, they're going to get a little bit of money. And if you turn into the next Beeple, they're going to get a lot of money. So that's a speculative thing, but they're also making money on the transactions. They're the stock market of NFTs, I guess. You could maybe argue something like that. So there are many NFT markets, and there will likely be many more created. There are servers on the internet that host and transact crypto-based assets like NFTs. That's what an NFT market is. So smart contracts. So blockchains exist. We've got what an NFT is. We know we have a wallet. We know we have a market. How does this work when nobody really owns the blockchain? How do you do a deal when you don't even necessarily know who your buyer is, or you don't know where they are, or how they're going to do it, or how these things are going to transact? And that's because some blockchains and more than Ethereum have what's called a smart contract. And a smart contract is a program. It is like a program that you can read code and look at it. It's got functionality, and the way that program is executed is by using some of the calculation within the blockchain to process the code. What this allows the blockchain to do is independently act on behalf of a creator of a token to handle the transactions without anybody involved. No individual person is taking money and handing something else out. It's all done automatically through the blockchain itself. It is not typically considered a very efficient, computationally efficient way of doing this, and that's one of the challenges, is that it requires a lot of processing, and the blockchain has to be replicated to execute the contract. So there's a lot of overhead involved, but it does allow for two anonymous participants or more to have very complex relationships that issue tokens and assign ownership and transfer things all automatically, all transparently. And smart contract writers are among the most sought after developers these days for these kinds of purposes, because you can do just about anything from trading crypto to setting up entire organizations that are independently run through the blockchain. So in order to prove a transaction has taken place and invoke the policies to all the affected parties in the contract, a smart contract is a program that takes in data in the form of transactions and runs code that can initiate other transactions. And it's basically the middleman of buying and selling NFTs, which is what we're talking about today. So what is it? What is an NFT? It's so you may understand it. Maybe you've done some homework before coming today, but a lot of people really misunderstand what an NFT is. And to be honest, I'm still kind of getting my head around it because it seems to be evolving what an NFT can be. It is literally a string of data on the blockchain. That's what you buy. If you could point to what your NFT is, it would be a string of characters in a file that's shared throughout all the people who use the blockchain to manage their assets, their crypto assets. It is unique. There is only one. You cannot take an NFT and make copies of it. You can copy the art, but you would have to mint it as a separate NFT. So it's unique, it's on the blockchain, and it is owned by a wallet that can be transferred. So you can transfer it, the ownership, to another owner. But you're only transferring that little string of characters that is usually got some metadata that's pointing to a website on an NFT Marketplace or other host that is pointing to the thing that you're valuing. And it is not fungible, so you can't divide it up amongst a bunch of people. It is not the item itself. So the NFT is not, when people talk about, oh, I bought a Bored Ape, or I bought this NFT from this artist I really like, and I got this art. You didn't. It didn't, not in terms of what the NFT understands. You bought a pointer to that art, and everybody who believes in the value of ownership in that space can prove that it's yours, but you don't get anything. Nobody's going to mail you art. Nobody's going to give you the art to sell. And it also doesn't typically, although work is being done in this space right now, does not typically convey copyright or licensing. So for example, the NBA has licensed NFTs, dunks. A player comes up, makes a great dunk, they take that video clip and they sell it as an NFT. Very, very popular. They're not giving you or transferring the rights to that video to, say, play in your sports bar on loop, or license that player's image on a jersey or a t-shirt that you can sell, or anything else, or the sound of the crowd cheering. Everything is still copyrighted by the people, but you own that video in their marketplace. So if you buy, the Neon Cat, which is a meme, recently sold for like almost $600,000, it's not really the Neon Cat. It's the ownership of that creator saying that they have NFT'd it. This is who owns it. They've minted it, and they are selling the right of owning that NFT. But we can still look at the image. We can still use the image because it's kind of generally public domain at this point. And it's just really about the value of the perceived ownership that you get. And our guests will talk more about that. So at this time, NFT is not a transfer of copyright, the actual object itself, or a means to subdivide an object to many owners. It's a digital file that proves to others that you own that token on the blockchain in question and have the ability to transfer that NFT to someone else. That's what it is. So when we talk about creating NFTs, what is minting? Minting is the process of creating an NFT through one of these marketplaces or on your own, potentially on the blockchain. And when you create an NFT, you're minting it. You'll hear about drops and minting and all of that. And this is where like the hard computational part happens. When you mint something, you're creating records on the blockchain. And that structure looks, in the abstract sense, looks something like what's on the graphic here, which is, you're establishing that there's a relationship between one wallet and another wallet. The token itself, which is the unique reference string of data, the metadata, which can include things like who created it, when was it created, where is it hosted, a lot of other things that can be put in there. The file itself, like where is this file that we're pointing to and what licensing arrangements are there. So when you mint something, it is now visible on the blockchain and it can then be transacted. It requires a lot of computation at this point to create that, which is some of the concerns. And the metadata that's in there is what will inform people about what that NFT is. So minting is the process of executing one of these smart contracts that creates the metadata necessary to point to a digital asset, create the cryptographic unique hash, which is a string of characters, and transfer the required crypto funds to the minter, the market, and anyone else involved via the smart contract so they can be sold on, for example, an NFT marketplace. So we're coming down to the end of the primer here, but essentially, so what's the problem? There's these guys out there, people I should say, that are creating this artwork and they're putting it out and they want to sell it, and they're not having to ship any products. They're not having to go to a printer and get this art put on canvas. They can just sell it. They make money. People make 69 million. Maybe some other artists make enough to pay their rent. Why isn't that a good thing? There's a lot of criticism of NFTs, which we'll get to throughout the day. And a lot of people made their concerns known when we even talking about NFTs, that we were going to somehow hype them. And that is not the case. We want to understand them. We understand the problems. We understand the opportunities, the solutions, the costs, and see if it's worth it. And I will tell you on the record, and I've told all our guests that I've spoken to, I am very ambivalent. I love technology. I love new things. I think it's a neat idea, but I'm very concerned about the downsides. So the problems that we're primarily dealing with, the industry's wrestling with, is the environmental cost. I mentioned that the computational cost of putting these smart contracts on the blockchain can be very high. On the Ethereum blockchain, which is the largest blockchain for NFTs, to do one NFT takes about the electrical cost for one house for a month. Now, people can debate those numbers about, well, what house, where is it, how are they getting their power, and so forth. But it's still very computationally intensive. A lot of computers, a lot of GPUs, a lot of CPUs have to be put to work to do the really high-end calculations that are required to mint these products. And that's a concern, because as you've seen, the explosive growth of NFTs, that's a lot of days of power that we're using to do them. And there are some people proposing solutions that could drastically reduce that, and we want to explore that today. But right now, as it is, it's a huge amount of energy going to prove ownership of digital products on a website. And that is enough for most people to just say no to NFTs. But we want to keep an open mind, and we're going to consider all the options and come away with something hopefully today. Legal concerns. So because it's so new and weird and not traditional, all of our laws are based around physical objects. They're based around the idea of giving somebody a thing and you getting something back down, to the dawn of time. And now here we are talking about transacting things that are completely virtual, that don't exist in the real world. And even the transactions of what we're transacting is not even the thing. And what rights does it convey? And none of that has really been defined. And there's not really a lot of good laws to define it. And I can tell you that law firms are very excited about this, because they're going to get paid a lot of money in the coming years defining this. And it's going to be a huge challenge for our legal system to figure out how to deal with this kind of thing. There are also issues of fraud that we need to address, and security, and a lot of that needs to be taken up. I will say that a lot of these things were also problems in the early days of the internet, which I witnessed. So it's possible these can be resolved as well, but it's still a problem today. Security concerns are also a big deal for a lot of folks. If you just Google NFT, fraud, hack, etc., you'll get endless stories about people getting cleaned out. Even very established projects, NFT projects, are victim to phishing attacks where they fall victim and basically accidentally reveal their coin, their token keys that allow people to take their stuff. There's websites that just vanish overnight and take all their money with them. There are some problems, and those need to be addressed and really thought through. And again, there are some solutions being proposed to prevent any single entity from being able to take something away from somebody without permission. And then the last one is speculation risk. Because of this explosive growth, because of these huge deals like Beeple and Quantum and so forth, the millions of dollars are being made for digital art. There's just a flood of it. There's just so much. And people are comparing it to the tulip bubble that led to a huge economic collapse. And that is definitely possible. I would honestly caution anybody getting into this space, either as out of interest or as a business, is that it is highly speculative. It is not fully proven yet for the ground for everybody, although some people are being very successful. I would not bet your 401k, your retirement, or your house on buying a bunch of JPEGs on the internet. It would be a bad idea. And I think anybody who responsibly involved in the industry would tell you that as well. That said, there are some ways you can support artists and creators that didn't exist before, and makes it maybe a little bit easier to get people into the digital art space. So there maybe is a plus side. And that's what we're going to try to get at today. This is not a pro NFT symposium. Believe me, I have a lot of serious concerns. We are going to hear from people who are very pro NFT, and that's great. We're going to hear some people who have concerns, and we want to hear that too. We want to hear your questions. We want to hear from everybody from all points of view as part of our mission of understanding these things better. Because I think you can agree that regardless of where you are on the spectrum of NFT hate or love, it is a huge event in our culture and digital world, and we should understand it better. I know I want to understand it better. So with that, that's why we're here today. Hopefully everyone now has at least a basic understanding of the topic. We'll be better prepared to hear from people who have views on NFTs, the problems, the promises, and the challenges. Like them or not, they're already having a huge impact on us all, either an environmental impact, economic influence, or even our forms of cultural expression. We want to have this forum open for your questions to the panel and to come away with a fuller understanding of issues that when we started, we pondered the question, to mint or not to mint. So thank you, everybody. And if you have any questions, just got a few minutes left. I don't know if questions have come in on chat because I was busy talking, but let me see here.
John, there are a few questions. I'll read them out to you.
Okay.
The first one is an NFT sort of like a DOI or other persistent identifier that has been monetized?
I don't know what a DOI is. So maybe I was thinking like, is this a DAO? But that's probably not what you mean, a DOI. I'd have to Google that. So let's go to the next question. I'm going to try to come back to that.
So the next question is, you mentioned that an NFT exists in one specific marketplace. Can it be moved to other marketplaces, or is it given or sold to others only within the original marketplace?
Well, the token would exist on the blockchain that it was minted on. Could you create a pathway for the token to be destroyed on one blockchain and created on another? I think technically you could. I am not aware of that being a common practice, although I will admit that my knowledge of NFTs is pretty minimal. So that would be a good question to ask a panelist. Technically, I could see it being a possibility if you were involved with what's called, basically layer 0, which is where the blockchains interact with each other. Now, it would require, I don't know if you could do it entirely through a smart contract, because you need to have somebody verify the thing that happened on one blockchain happened on the other blockchain. So I'm not sure, but I guess technically it could be possible if all the players involved wanted it to be. Hopefully that's a good enough answer. We'll bring that question up to the panelists who know more than me.
There's a few more. I'm going to go ahead and read them since it looks like many people have joined us for the primer. So the next one is, for original art and creations, it's starting to make sense. But when you mention a video of an NBA dunk as an NFT, is that currently not a concern for a public brand like the NBA?
Well, in that case, it was it was people who, it was the NBA through a licensing arrangement. So they are holding on to their license and then giving permission for a company to create these NFTs. So it doesn't mean like you and I can't watch a game on Saturday, record a sick dunk, encode it as video, and then mint it. They would come after you for that, for sure. But the people who own the rights, the people who are putting up those disclaimers on the broadcasts, do own the rights, and they're seeing another way to sell it to us. Here, we're going to sell it to you for beer commercials on Saturday when you watch the game, and then if you really like it, you can pay us $10,000 and say you own that dunk. I mean, it's working, so they're doing it. And I think the people who are buying it are expecting it to be like other sports collectibles, like jerseys, or for me, 49ers fan from way back, just the past, it was like the game-winning thing. There would be some value to me to go like, I have a piece of that game's history. It's just not worth $200,000 for me. So I think it's just a question of the values in the eye of the beholder. You and I could not make that, but if we did. Now, if we went out to the playground and did a dunk, which I will never do, but if I was able to do that and videoed it, I could make an NFT of my dunk and put it up there, and maybe somebody would buy it. I don't know. But yeah, you can't grab somebody else's intellectual property and mint it. That's a real concern, because right now there's nothing really stopping you from doing that. Technically, it's just you would not have the legal right to do it. And
there's a number of other ones, but I think I'm going to ask you to answer some of those through
typing. Okay,
typing. Type the answer.
Sure.
So we can certainly continue to do that, and also we can ask our panelists some of these questions later as we get into those. So thank you, John, very much. That was great. I learned quite a bit.
Okay. Good. Thank you. All right.